A lot of times people don't understand, especially when you're getting into business, that your clients, your customers, your patients, they're not necessarily falling in love with the brand. They fall in love with the person first. They watch your content on social media. They're relating to you first. And I think that is the part that people don't understand. They're quick to jump to selling things. Like, I need to sell you we all want to make money. We're all in this for the same thing of making money, living a better life, and having that financial freedom. But if you don't build that trust beforehand, if you don't build that rapport, then you're just another person on the internet. You're, a drop in the ocean. The worst part is that you lose potential customers. People that could be your ideal people, you're losing them because you're losing that sense of relatability.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Third Story Podcast. I am joined here today by a video expert, a storyteller, a man who gets things done. People love his work. Guys, go to the website. We'll have that in the links later on, but you got to check this guy out, man. He's dope. I was introduced to him by someone I had known for a number of years. And, at first I was like, man, what is this meeting going to be like? But man, when I met this guy, I'm like, man, he's good people. He cares about people and he loves what he does. And also what's really important is that he's good at it. Guys, I'm here with the one, the only Mr. Fabian Martinez. Fabian, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited. I love everything that you're doing. And I saw how much we meshed together. So it was always my pleasure to learn about you and what you're doing on your end.
Yeah, most definitely. Man, Fabian, I was checking out all your stuff on the websites. I mean, you've got trainings, you've got resources, you're speaking here, you're doing workshops for SCORE. I mean, you're just doing the whole nine, man. So let me ask you this, and this was the big question that was on my mind. And for all the business owners out there, we've been hearing a lot, you've got to do video. So I want to hear it from your perspective. Why is video so important for a business?
I think video is important for a business because in this day and age, I'll be honest, people don't read. People don't read, and we relied so much in the past on things like Google reviews. And while they are great, they're not pushing people to buy things anymore or to purchase products or services. They need that emotional connection. And I mean, we can go back to film decades and decades and decades ago. And I think that was the difference between listening to things on radio and watching it with our own two eyes and bridging that connection. That's why it was so groundbreaking to see things mixed with audio and visual, and people could see themselves in their shoes. And it's no different for business. When you are a customer and if you don't relate to a brand, then your odds are not going to purchase that product. And with video, it bridges that gap where you can make that connection. I always think of, back in was it the 90s? Maybe. I mean, I'm aging myself a little bit here, but back in the 90s and maybe early 2000s, there was that Sarah McLachlan in the Eyes of the Angel commercial where it was like showing the cats and dogs, and it was maybe 30 seconds to a minute long, but you felt something when you saw those cats and dogs, and that's powerful stuff because I'm remembering this 30 something years later. I mean, I was maybe in my early teens and I saw something and was like, man, if I had $1 a day to help a dog or a cat in need, I would donate. And I think that's the power of video, is that it speaks, sometimes it doesn't even have to talk to really reach somebody. It could be silent, or it could be something where you're just connecting with a brand or someone that helps you push you over that line to purchase that product or service.
Man, two things that you just mentioned there really stood out to me. Number one was being relatable, and then the emotions, feeling something. Can you talk more to that? How does business make you, how does video make you more relatable to your customer?
Sure. So it makes you more relatable because I think a lot of times people don't understand, especially when you're getting into business, that your clients, your customers, your patients, they're not necessarily falling in love with the brand. They fall in love with the person first.
Mm.
They watch YouTube, they watch, your content on social media. They're relating to you first. And I think that is the part that people don't understand. They're quick to jump to selling things. Like, I need to sell you and I get it. We all want to make money. We're all in this for the same thing of making money, living a better life, and having that financial freedom. But if you don't build that trust beforehand, if you don't build that rapport, then you're just another person on the internet. You're, a drop in the ocean. And
Mm.
so, the worst part is that you lose potential customers, people that could be your ideal people. You're losing them because you're losing that sense of relatability.
Oh my goodness, Fabian, you better say that. Somebody passed the collection plate because my man is preaching right now. You are so right, man. So this is something I always tell people, and this was something that revolutionized what I did in my business, and that was let them buy me and get my services for free. Now, I know when I say that, that's going to mess people up. What do you mean get services for free? Like, you're not going to make money. Here's the thing. When people buy into you and they like you as a person, as you mentioned, the person behind the business, then to me, your product or service is as good as sold or referred, right? Like, you don't have to come with the sales pitch and try to tell people how amazing your product or service is. Video, what you're telling me, is allowing people to connect with the person behind the brand. They don't necessarily fall in love with the product or the business itself, but that person. So I absolutely love that. All right. So that's making yourself relatable. All right. So let's go to the second thing that you mentioned, and that was the emotions. How does video make people feel something?
Well, it depends on how you structure it. I mean, there's so many types of video that move people in good and both bad ways. I mean, just the other day, I had someone ask me, what would you say is the number one emotion in which people act on? To me, and I always hate to say it, but it's fear. Fear
Mm.
sells in so many different factors. That's just one emotion, but fear sells, in so many factors, fear of missing out, or fear of not being healthy, or, it's just in every aspect of life, we have something that almost like haunts us to do the opposite, to buy the products, to eat healthier, to go run and be, fit, and we have to, have emotions in our videos in order to move people to that next level. Because if you are missing on emotion, it doesn't matter how great the visuals are, it doesn't matter how great the lighting and the special effects are. If you disconnect on emotion, you have nothing. It's the same thing even in cinema. You watch movies and it could be a great blockbuster, but if it has no plot and I don't feel any relatability to it, it's just another movie I watched one time and then I never go back and watch again. It's no different for business. If you don't catch people, and you won't catch everybody. Don't get me wrong. You're not
Yeah,
going
yeah,
to
yeah.
catch everybody. There's different strokes for different folks, but you will, for your community that you're building, those people, those clients, those customers, if you are speaking to their most, insatiable, like their needs, if you're speaking to their needs, then you are going to move them to a point where you're going to build a long-term relationship.
Okay, let's elaborate on that a little bit,
Sure.
because you are also a storyteller. You're telling a story in the video. And storytelling is what I found, and I know you believe this as well, is the most compelling way to move someone emotionally. So when you're creating a video for someone, how do you go about telling that story? Like, how do you put that together?
Sure, sure. So one book, I'm going to tell you a book that I highly recommend, and it's probably going to ruin movies for you for the rest of your life, but it's How to Build a Story Brand. It's a very popular book. It's for special, especially in people that are in the creative community, but it's How to Build a Story Brand. And when I read it, it completely changed my mind and how to look at things. And I started watching movies and I was like, oh my God, they're right. And it goes back to movies all the way back into the 40s and 50s, those type of movies, they all follow one set of principles. And it's the hero, which a lot of times we think of ourselves in business as the hero, when in fact, we are not. We are not the hero of our own story. And we tend to think that because we are selling a product and this is solving a problem, we should be the spotlight, right? And it's actually not us. It's actually your customer. And where our role is that we come in their journey of, like, let's say I have a bad back and I'm the customer. I have a bad back and I am looking for someone to solve my problem, but I am the hero of the story. Now, you as the business owner, you come in, like, let's say for all my Star Wars fans out there, you're the Obi-Wan or you're the Yoda that comes in and guides that Luke Skywalker to fixing the problem, to save the galaxy. So I know it's a little nerdy here, but it's quite the little,
No, no,
it's quite the
good.
perfect analogy, because you are that guide. You are that person that comes in and shows them, hey, look, this is how we're going to solve that problem. So you're guiding them from that solution, because we live in an age of information overload almost. We have so much ability to consume, and there's this guy telling me this, and this expert telling me this, and this expert telling me that. And sometimes we just want someone to say, hey, look, this is the problem. This is how you fix it. In a world of complexity, we're looking for simplicity. And so, that's what storytelling does. It guides that character all the way to the end, and it shows them that, really in this world that we're living in now, it's not as hard as we think it is. And I am going to be, as the business owner, I'm going to be the one that's going to guide you from problem to solution.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, man. Speaking of that book, Building a Story Brand, I've read it as well as other books and other things on storytelling, man. You're right. It does kind of ruin movies for you, because now when I'm watching a movie, and one of the points he makes in that book is formulas. All of this stuff you're watching is built on formula. So I'm always now, that's always in the back of my mind. Okay, this is happening now. This is happening here. And you're like, oh my goodness, they really are using these kind of formulas. So it's funny how that happens. But and in a way, I would also say it's helped me to appreciate, because the ones who I know they're using the formula, but you kind of make me forget about it, right? Yeah. That means you're doing a masterful job in telling the story. So yeah, funny that you mentioned that. Man, so let's go back into it, man. What got you started in video? Like, what made you say, I need to be doing video as a business. I need to be telling people stories.
So this goes back to my childhood. And I didn't even realize this, but as I got older and I wanted to go back and kind of see my younger self, me as a baby, me as a kid. I realized that of a lot of our family home videos, it's either myself or my father that's behind the camera. And I never realized that. I never realized I had I was always a lover of cinema growing up. And I, loved movies. I'm the, it's a terrible thing to say, but I'm like the oopsie child of my family, where I am 10 years younger than my nearest sibling. And so I was watching movies as a 10-year-old that I probably shouldn't have been watching, but I had siblings that were watching, more adult, mature content. And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with stories and being afraid as a 10-year-old watching a scary movie. And, I loved that feeling of it. And, oddly enough, as I grew up, I also was in sports, and I love sports. I played sports most of my whole life, most of my life. And, went to college, went to University of Florida, go Gators, went to the University of Florida and graduated with a degree in sport management. Jumped into sports. I was actually working with the Miami Dolphins, and worst thing happened to me is I realized that I did not like working in sports, which was a horrible feeling, because you put all this time and effort thinking one way that you're going to be like. I felt like I was going to be Jerry Maguire. I was going to be wheeling and dealing, the sports agent. I'm going to be living the life, and I did nothing like that. I did, stadium operations with the Dolphins. It was a eye-opening, but it was a great experience. Met great people. And then I decided that, my life, I was wasting my life working. At one point, I worked about 32 hours straight, from working, doing stadium operations for the University of Miami and the Miami Dolphins, from NCAA football to NFL football on Saturdays and Sundays and changing the whole stadium around. And long story short, I got out of that to go into healthcare. Worked in healthcare for about 10 years as a recruiter, and COVID happened. I feel like this is a lot of people's story that started their own business, but COVID happened. And when, essentially people were running out of the burning, fire, I was trying to hire people to go into the hospital. So most people wanted to stay out of it, but I wanted to, I was hiring people to go into it. And many people on our staff left, and then I feel like a lot of people did in 2020 to pursue their own careers, find out what is to life. There's more to life than this. And we were doing twice the work for the people that stayed. We were doing twice the work with half the team. Ended up getting super sick, stressed out to the max. And I mean, I was so stressed out to the point I went to the ER twice and with like stomach issues and was like, what's going on? I don't ever get sick. What is going on here? And thankfully my wife was like, hey, look, this was pre-kids. We had the ability to do stuff like this, but she told me straight to my face. She was like, hey, look, we were playing this game one night where it was like a card game. And it was like, if you could it just gives you random questions of, what your favorite thing to do and this. And one of the questions I just happened to pull on that day was, if you were to do something else, what would you do? And I happened to pull that card and I was like, yeah, I would love to be behind a camera. I've loved cinema, doing all this stuff. And she was like, well, do it. And I was like, oh, what do you mean? Like, I can't just leave a job. I can't leave a job without having a job. And she's like, look, we don't have kids. I will hold down the fort until you can get this up and running. Do what you want to do, but like, don't be miserable because this job is killing you. This job is killing you. And, I always think of my own family, like the smack in the back of the head. It was like, Fabian, if you don't take advantage of this opportunity, you'll never get this again in your life. And so life will happen and you will live with regret of not knowing what if. And so I decided to make the jump. I crazily enough, I waited to get a bonus from my job. I waited to that bonus, hit that bank account. And as soon as I hit that bank account, then I was like, okay, next day I put in my 2 weeks notice and they tried to get me to stay because I was the top 3 recruiters for the company and I was doing well. I lived a decent life, but I wasn't happy. And I think that to me was what was killing me inside. Is I was stressed, and it didn't, all the money in the world couldn't have made me feel better. And so I made a jump, did my own thing, and I am now 5 years into it. Head above water, I'm doing good. I've got a roof over my head, the lights are still working, and food in my stomach. So I'm like, it could be worse.
Let's go, man. I'm so glad your wife did that. Y'all, for all y'all experiencing those dope videos, you get to enjoy everything that Fabian's doing. We got to thank his wife for that. Oh man, thankful for a good wife, man, who put that in your ear and just encourage you to do that. I think that's so powerful. Wow. And it's funny you talk about how COVID was kind of the precursor to all of this. I think a lot of people could write a book that started with, and then there was COVID, right? Like that was like like it flipped the script for a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? And it did the same thing for you. And look what it has birthed, man. So that is beautiful. So you mentioned you have kids, man. How many kids you have?
I have two girls. I am an official girl dad.
You're
girl
dad
and a 4-year-old. 3 and a 4-year-old. Okay. So I am in it right now. I am in the crazy life. That's why today, they just left today to go to Virginia, and I am home and it's quiet. And to be honest with you, it's almost uncomfortable because I am not used to this life anymore.
Yeah. That is awesome. So 3 and a 4-year-old. So the 4-year-old is going to be starting pre-K this year?
Yes, she's starting that's why they took the trip, is because her family's in Virginia. So they took the trip to go spend time with her family because life's about to change. We're following the school system now, and we can't take days off, and we get, there's so many things. And it kind of makes me relish the good times, man. The good times where we had no barriers to holding us back. We could vacation when we want. But I'm excited. I mean, to be honest with you, when it comes back to business, this is what fuels me. This is what fuels me. Purpose has changed. Before, when I started this business, it was financial freedom to live a better life and to have more things. And when you don't have kids, and then when you do have kids, the script flips on you, and it's not those long nights, those days that are hard, those meetings that those failures that you experience. They're all part of the growth that I want to not only experience to grow myself, but to instill upon my kids. And it's worth it, man. It's worth struggling and fighting for this, because now I have purpose. And these two little girls, they drive me crazy, but I'll do anything in the world for them.
Of course, man. That is so wonderful. Yeah, the perspective changes, with the kids, and so you start seeing things a little bit differently. So yeah, that is awesome, man. And glad to see, good husband and father, man, good businessman. And I remember when we first met, and I was like, let me feel this out. Let me see where this guy is coming from. I wanted to see. It was Jeanette Deatherage who had introduced us, and I was just like, let's see where this is gonna go. And I just met this guy. I'm like, oh man, he's cool. And I checked out the website. I'm like, yo, man, this guy's doing some dope stuff. Like, we gotta make something happen, man. So I'm glad we get this chance to talk here, man. So speaking of things you got going on in the business, man. So I know you provide resources for people, like kind of like you have I saw the mini course. You're doing stuff for SCORE. Talk about the upcoming workshops you have going on with SCORE.
Sure. So in my business, I guess it kind of goes back to that first, where I currently, my main part of my business is providing video production, DI, or I guess done for you service video production, where we help people with business strategy, what to create, what not to create, in terms of creating video assets, video libraries, and all that fun stuff, and helping them with the strategy on that portion. But along the way, I met with hundreds of business owners at this point, where I noticed one particular problem. And it was, they loved my work, they loved what I did, and they saw it, they wanted to meet with me. But the problem is, when it came down to the price, and it was too expensive. And I get it. I'm not cheap. I'm not the most expensive. I'm not Steven Spielberg, but I am also not the $500 guy that's going to show up with an iPhone. That's just not the brand that I've built on my own. I wanted to build a quality product for people that are serious about growing their business. And so when I met with these people, they were like, hey, look, I can't afford what you do. And I was like, well, I can't afford to, obviously do a professional video for $200. I can't do that. But I realized there was a gap in my industry where people didn't have the resources, but they craved the knowledge. And, as a person myself who took courses, one in particular was full-time filmmaker, was to learn how to get behind the camera, learn all this stuff. And, I mastered that, and I spent the 100 hours of that. But I get that most people just want to learn how to use the phone in their pocket. They're like, hey, look, I just want to create some stuff for either social media or for my website. And so I was like, okay, there are a lot of resources on YouTube, but there's a lot of noise. If I can create something that can be a resource for people that just want to cut out the noise, they want to learn the basics of what it is to create video, how to write, how to tell a story, how to do all of that. What are my options? And I felt like there were so many business owners that just had no idea what to do and what to create and how to film and how to, because there's a lot of information in terms of, making my camera look professional and all this in frames per second and, ISO. And people are like, I have no idea what this means. And so I created that program to really break it down to nuts and bolts of like, hey, look, I don't need to teach you this, because you're not going to be a full-time cameraman. You want to be the person that doesn't look like they recorded it with a potato and it looks, like a 1980s video game. but you are not going to create a Hollywood production. You just want a professional looking footage that looks good and sounds good. And so I teach people how to do that. And I just recently started a partnership with Score, which deals with small businesses in the Palm Beach, Palm Beach County area, which is, I think, Palm Beach County, Broward County, and Miami-Dade County down here in Florida. And it's going to teach them how to create a video testimonial. I preach this because this is the most foundation a foundation can be when it comes to creating video. I know in this day and age, we're like, oh my God, I got to create a TikTok and I got to create an Instagram reel. And, I think a lot of people just jump to that first because that's where everybody is and the eyes are. But the problem is that they're wondering why they're losing customers or they're not getting any customers coming through the door. And it's because they haven't built the trust. They haven't, had something where if someone comes to your thing, they come to your page and they're like, okay, cool material. And I'll maybe give you a follow, but follows don't pay. Eventually maybe they'll, yeah, follows don't play in that, they don't pay. And, you ultimately, you're doing this to generate business. And so and then the foundation of all foundations is to create trust for your own business and to get your happiest clients, your happiest customers, your happiest patients in front of a camera and telling them and have them tell the story of what it's like to work with you. Because that right there is going to, in the quickest way possible, get people in the door. So when you're spending all these hundreds of hours networking and doing all of this stuff to grow your business, when people go, and they go to your website, they go to your social media, they're seeing other people now talk about how great it is to work with you. And then now, if they're interested in working with you, that's going to push them over the edge because the 15-second TikTok is not going to push someone over the edge to working with you.
Wow. I like that. Push them over the edge to work with you. And you're so right, man. Think about it. Like if I go to your website or one of your social media profiles and I'm seeing videos of people talking about how you solve the problem for them and the transformation that they experience, like that's the selling point right there. Like if he did it for them, then he can do it for me. Like I'm very big on that. Like if you go to my website, my social media profiles, social proof from top to bottom, right? Because like I could say anything I want to say about my business, but, and I tell people this, like I'm going to be the least believable person, right? The people who are saying that I solved this problem for them, I did this, they enjoyed working with me, it was easy. And I went and watched your video testimonials and people I can tell that they truly enjoy working with Fabian. And going back to what you had mentioned before about the person behind the brand. So here's the thing with you, your product is not just good, although that's important, is that people also like the Fabian behind the product. And it was probably just as important because they feel like they're getting more than just a good video with Fabian. They're getting an experience. Sorry, I just talked about you in third person. I should have just said you because we're right here. But, he's just that famous, guys. We got to talk about him in third person, right? So, but yeah, man. So I absolutely love that. And then let's also talk about this. You have a webinar that you're going to be doing on September 1st at 1 p.m. Eastern. Talk a little bit more about that, probably relatable to what you're doing with Score, but let's talk about that webinar.
Sure. So they're actually the same webinar. And this is the webinar that I think is, I want to get as many people as I can to these webinars that are people that are hungry and they're searching for answers. They're just starting and they're like, hey, I want to make sense of this whole video thing. Or you've created content and you've kind of hit that rut. You've hit the rut of like, why aren't people coming in? Why isn't it generating business? And that's why I decided to create the workshop of just teaching you how to create a video testimonial. And this is going to be a multifaceted approach because this is going to be a workshop that's going to not only teach you how to create that, but where to put this for the most impact. The most impact of putting it on, possibly your social media. Does it fit, editing it to fit on your social media versus having it on your website and what that's going to entail. it tells two different stories, because obviously 2 minutes of the person talking about you, and you have to compress that down to 15, 30 seconds, you're going to get a different story. But teaching people what that means, how that's valuable, how it's going to generate business. And so that's what I'm going to be doing on that particular workshop, and why I think it's just so vital. It's so missed amongst creators and business owners, that we just don't talk about this enough. We go to the flashy stuff, we go to the fun stuff. And I get it. I mean, creating testimonials are not exactly the funnest thing in the world. And, it's like being an accountant and I got to talk about taxes and stuff like that. But you don't realize, and especially as a business owner, even I guess another tangent is just like your own story, but your social proof, you don't realize how powerful that
Yeah.
is when people are searching for, and I think about it like, I'm trying to think about it in the non-sexy way of just, where it's like an account, like, going back to that example of the accountant, where someone who did my own taxes in the very beginning, completely messed it up for my own business. And now I have to pay the IRS for for my errors, and I have to pay several $1,000s for my errors. But had I seen someone like an accountant that was like, oh my
Hmm.
God, this is the right thing, I can give them $800, $900, and $1,000, and I'm done, and I don't have to worry about this problem. I wish I would have done that. I wish I would have seen that person. And then the person I ended up landing on was a person who talked about how he had dealt with another customer, and I was actually referred to him from another customer. It was just a real life testimonial, and how they talked about they had a similar issue. They went to him, and he solved the
Yeah.
problem. And I'm like, oh my God, this is just a real life testimonial. But this is when you're creating your own testimonials. The kicker and the great thing about them is that they work when you can't. So if I'm up at 3 in the morning
Woo.
and
Yeah.
I'm looking for an accountant at 3 in the morning, I don't have to worry about talking to this person or that person. I just go on the website, I see them talking, and I'm like, I have that same problem. Hook, line, and sinker. I'm now
Yeah.
that person's client.
There you go. Exactly. Fabian, I got this question for you. Let's say I'm someone who I want to do video, but I'm hesitant. I don't know if I want to get on camera. Like, I'm afraid I might make mistakes. I might look foolish and stuff like that. So if I'm just starting out and I haven't done video before, I've barely been on stage, what would you say to me in order to get me to just start doing video?
Well, I think it's just like working out, repetition. And I promise
Mm.
you, I even tell this to my $1 million clients and all these people that, have been so glorified on a bigger stage, that you're going to make mistakes. I promise you, you're going to make mistakes. And one little tip and trick that I always tell people on set is like, hey, I'm gonna ask you this question for testimonials. I'm gonna ask you this question probably about 3 or 4 times, and I want to get you to the point that you're so sick of talking about this particular subject that it becomes out naturally. Because the first 1 or 2 times that you record something, and I have recorded so many videos, and I'm still terrible at when I click the button, I have to stare into this screen or this camera, and I'm freaking out. And what do I talk about? And doing all that, and there's so many things that come into our mind. But be okay with messing up, because messing up, failure is the part of the process. Like I said, it's like working out. You have to repeat this exercise to the point of failure in order for you to grow. So rest assured, you will mess up. That's what the magic of editing is for. Thing is, no
Mhm.
one
Yeah.
sees all the bad stuff. You may do 100 takes, but that one take that you love is the part that people see. So don't worry about messing up, because it's normal. It's great. The top of the top names do it all the time. It's just a part of getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. And if you can
Mm.
do that, you can start to master video and getting in front of the camera.
All right, y'all heard it from the expert. Listen, you got to get your reps in. You got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and you just got to start. You just got to do it. What does it say? You don't have to be great to start, but you got to start in order to be great. So, and y'all, Fabian said it himself. Even he messes up on camera still, and he's the expert. But the thing is, he doesn't let the mistakes stop him. I love that book by, what was it? John Maxwell. He talks about failing forward. So it's like we got to do the same thing in video. You got to fail forward, all right? You messed up. Don't let that. You're going to mess up, guys. You are going to mess up. I shoot videos and I still mess up. Sometimes it takes me a few takes to get it. But the thing is, I don't let that stop me. I just keep going until I get the right take. And Fabian will definitely be the one to guide you to getting that good take. And if you go and check out his website, he's going to make you look good, right? So the finished product is going to be way better than what happened in practice. So, man, I absolutely love that. So, Fabian, just one last question for you, man. I want you to pretend it's 75 years from now and your business is no longer here. What are people saying about it?
That it helped them grow. I want people, I've been very much an advocate for impact. And when I started this career, don't get me wrong, I was scared like a chicken with my head cut off, not sure what to do, how to find my way. And this 5 years, I'm 5 years in and I'm still searching the 100 avenues of trying to find my way. I don't think I ever will, but I do realize along the way that I want to leave an impact. I want to leave an impact, and I want to help people find their most impactful self. Because like we just talked about, where for people that are scared to get in front of the camera, and there are tools in this day and age. AI is creeping up behind us, creating avatars of us, and I get the need or the want to just code some other avatar and put it in front of the camera so that I don't have to get in front of the camera. But I encourage anyone that's listening to this to get in front of the camera and find that person, because you will. You will find the person that is going to impact thousands of people, and that person is going to be you. I know it feels small in the beginning. I know it feels like you're almost talking into the void, but it's in a weird way, it's almost like how a virus spreads, is when you get one person and then it just grows and it grows and it grows and it grows. And now you're affecting hundreds of people, thousands of people. Everyone has a humble beginning. So I hope that in my 75 years after I'm long gone, I want people to know that I want them to find their best self. And if I can help them get there, if I can help them get that message out from their heart and from their brain and get it out into video, into real life, and for them to be happy with it, that to me is worth any amount in the world, because I know that I'm impacting people.
Fabian, I absolutely love what you just said. Let me tell you why. Especially when it comes to these avatars, I see small business owners trying to use these avatars in order to market their business. And I'm like, this is absolute foolishness. All right, I'm going to get a little angry right now, because it's just like, how do you expect to impact someone emotionally when you're sitting here looking like a talking mannequin trying to tell me about your business? That don't mean anything to me. Like, you and I are having a conversation right now. You can't have two avatars doing this, even the way I'm talking right now. The passion cannot come through in an AI avatar. I'm sorry, it just does not work, right? And I'm someone, when you talk to me, I'm going to talk with energy. Like, you're going to feel passion. When you're talking about what you love about what you do, that passion comes through, and you can't get that. Guys, people feel energy. They feel emotion. And when you cannot get that across in an AI avatar. And going back to what we were talking about in the beginning, once again, like you talked about being relatable. An AI avatar is not relatable, guys. You talked about the emotion, making people feel something. You cannot do that with an avatar. Yes, it may be scary. Yes, you're going to feel a little hesitant. You're afraid you might make mistakes and look foolish. Don't worry about that. Just get in front of the camera. And I love this from Think Media. Press record. Just press record. Just get in front of the camera and do it. And once again, if you need someone who's going to make it look good and appealing to your audience, this is why we have the Fabian Martinez's of the world. Okay? So guys, man, Fabian, I just want to say thank you so much for taking this time and to just share with us the power of video testimonials, telling a story, being relatable, making customers feel something, building that trust. So if somebody wants to work with Fabian or wants to learn more, where do they go?
Sure. So it depends. I mean, I guess I have those two avenues where if you want to see some of my professional work, you can go to Raindrop, as in the Raindrop, Raindrop D as in David, M as in Mary. So raindropdm.com. It's for digital media, Raindrop Digital Media, and you can see all of our professional work and all the projects that we're working on. And then if you are that business owner that's looking for just some guidance on where to go and what to do next, that's where we have our Profitable Content Launchpad, and that is profitablecontent.net. So you can go to those two websites, check them out. Those are two different types of people. But if you want to either build the table yourself or have someone build it for you, either way, we're here to help.
Fabian's got you covered, guys. Once again, Fabian, thank you so much for being here. Guys, that was this episode of the Third Story Podcast, and we'll see you in the next one. Make the rest of your day the best of your day.